The people you meet are gonna be the most important thing in your life. The reason I got into networking and relationships was because I thought, if I can learn how to bring in clients, they'll never fire me from this gig. Connecting people to each other builds social capital. It's a muscle. The more you use it, the better those connections are. When you cultivate who's around you, you're cultivating who you are. I started my original podcast in my friend's basement during law school. I had no help with Art of Charm. Yes, I was working with other people. They were not at all interested in the show. They were interested in picking up girls and making money. And for me, that started to get a little sad pretty quick. I just couldn't be the pickup guy anymore. It was just killing me. I hated it. I'm married. I'm gonna start a family soon. Like, I don't want that. I wanted to interview great people. I didn't want to be stuck with this pickup brand, and I had to rebuild it. Welcome to the Jordan Harbinger Show. And I had a lot of great help from my network. That was why we were able to go from 0 to 4.5 million downloads a month in 8-10 months. The relationships that I had, this is the best insurance policy that you can have, and you can't buy it.
They say that the human race is doomed, that we have lost touch with our true nature, that the media has corrupted us, and that the planet has no future. I disagree. I believe that humanity is full of hope, and that our salvation lies within each one of us. My name is Brian Rose, and my job is to listen, the oldest method of learning known to man. Each week I seek out individuals that are changing the world, people who are living and thinking in a different way. Their stories will challenge your beliefs, make you question your choices, and perhaps inspire you to change. I never planned on doing any of this, but now I can't stop. Join me on this mission and make humanity something we can all be proud of. I first met Jordan Harbinger 7 years ago when I was out in Los Angeles about to go on the Joe Rogan Experience. London Real had just started, and Jordan was hosting the Art of Charm podcast, which he did for, say, 9 years, and interviewed some of the most amazing people around the world. So I was so excited to sit down with him again and find out what he's been up to in his brand new show. Jordan's actually a master networker, and not in that kind of a sleazy way where you go to a party and pass out as many business cards as possible. Jordan does it in an organic way, where he's constantly checking in with people, investing, and connecting people together to where he builds goodwill that ends up paying him back massively. So if you want to learn how to network and that entire art, this episode with you, a lot of amazing actionable information that I'm actually using myself. And inside London Real, we've been doing some other things, and that is teaching students from around the world how to create things, whether it's a business, a podcast, a TED Talk, or better lifestyles. We are the best in the world when it comes to accountability programs, getting you to do those hard and uncomfortable things to have massive 10x success in life. And here's a bit more about what we do inside. London Real doesn't stop when the conversation ends. You see, that's when we get started. Because everything begins with a thought, and then comes the action. The London Real Academy is our global transformation platform. Here we bring together thousands of students from over 75 countries. Whether you want to build a profitable business from your passion, or learn to speak to inspire, or broadcast yourself with your very own podcast, or accelerate your life to become a high-performance person, we have the online accountability course and personal mentoring program that will make your dream a reality. Join us, and we'll take your life to the next level together. Our next accelerator course is starting soon. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Jordan Harbinger, the award-winning broadcaster, entrepreneur, and networking expert. In 2006, you launched the Art of Charm podcast after leaving your career as a Wall Street lawyer. The show quickly became a pioneer in the space and regularly topped the iTunes charts for 12 years. Your new venture, The Jordan Harbinger Show, distills untapped wisdom from the world's top performers and has been an instant success with over 4 million downloads a month and was named by Apple as one of the best podcasts of 2018. You're also one of the top experts in the art of networking, with Forbes magazine naming you as one of the 50 best relationship builders on the planet. Jordan, welcome back to London Real.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Dude, it's great to be here. 6 years ago, we were in a hotel room in Venice Beach. Wait for it, folks. Taping a show because I was out there to be on the Joe Rogan Experience, and that's when we first met. Wow, it's been quite a...
Yeah, that was a long time ago. And my wife asked me, how do you know Brian? And I thought, sometime in another lifetime, two or three lifetimes ago, we were sitting in that hotel with your little Zoom recorder or whatever. I don't even know if you even had anything. It was nothing like this.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was just webcams and Zoom recorders, and we were a year into the show.
Yeah.
And you were kind of a pioneer in the space, you know? You were one of the few podcasts I knew about, and I think some of our first few guests maybe were in the pickup space, and I knew of it.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, there weren't a lot of podcasts back then.
No.
You know, there was Rogan, and so when I knew we were going out, I was like, let's have you on the show, and then you were there, and it was just a weird moment for all of us.
Yeah, we did it in a hotel room, and I was wearing probably the exact same thing I'm wearing right now, except I was younger and prettier back then.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
And then 6 years later, you've talked to incredible people. I mean, you know, you've had amazing names on the show, from generals to Charlemagne the God and Neil deGrasse Tyson. Now you've got your new venture. What have you seen over the last 12 years of this medium? You know, this rebirth of radio that you kind of stumbled onto, you know?
Yeah, well, it's been interesting because, of course, I pay attention to London Real, and I remember at first looking at a lot of what you were doing and what I was doing and thinking like, okay, we're doing similar stuff, but it's different enough that we have a lot of overlap in our show's fans. And whenever I ask people what they like about both shows, they usually list the same qualities, which is we actually prepare for the interviews, take the time to do in-depth conversations. It's all about the listener or the viewer instead of about trying to make ourselves look great. And what I noticed was that tends to be really rare among conversations, among interviewers, among people in media, because, and I'm sure you've seen this, the trend is get more influence by getting more likes on your crap, right? And I say crap because that's what most people are producing. They're not thinking about those people who are watching us. They're not thinking about what are people going to learn from the conversation. They're just thinking, I got to look great. I got to make sure that I hold up my sponsor's bottle of Viagra juice or whatever the heck it is, and then try to rinse and repeat until you can show that you're some sort of force on the space. And by sticking true to what you and I have been doing for a really long time, what I've seen is that, thank goodness, that actually tends to win out, because the quality of the conversation is pretty much one of the only things that allow shows like London Real to float to the top. Because right now, I think the stat showed something like there's 500,000 to 600,000 podcasts. I don't even know how many YouTube channels there are. Millions, probably. Yeah. And with interviews, just add those with podcasts, you've got a lot of choice out there. So to hone the craft, to actually spend the time getting good at what you've gotten good at over the last 10, 12 years that we've been doing this, that's what's rare. Not the ability to turn the camera on. As cool as this set is, that's not what sets you apart necessarily. It's the fact that you actually care about what you're doing because you care about what these people are experiencing. And so I've seen a downward trend in people doing that, which actually makes it easier for guys like you and I to stand out, in my opinion.
Yeah, and a downward trend because people are thinking about that clickbait, that shock thing, then putting someone on the spot,
right,
so they can get that immediate pop and kind of be Instagram famous.
Sure.
as opposed to providing value and going for this long-term play.
Yeah, yeah. I always say on the show, you have to advocate for the audience. You know, I used to be an attorney. If there's one thing I learned in law school, and there probably is only one thing that I learned back then, it's that you have to advocate for your client. And for guys like you and I, these people watching us, those are our clients. These are our customers, if you will. So we have to advocate for them. Every minute of their time has to be earned with quality, not just like, oh, let me trigger some group of people and then jump down Jordan Peterson's throat and trick him into saying something that gets excerpted and put on other channels so that we get more flow into the channel. It's harder to build an audience of intelligent people that come to you for what you're doing. There's a huge number of people tuning in to this right now, not knowing who I am, not even caring, just going, well, if it's on London Real, it's probably gonna be worth my time. That's tough. It's easier to go, hey, look at this guy who has a temper tantrum on this random YouTube show. Click, subscribe, see if it happens again, never watch another video. That's why you get these channels or these people that are influencers and they've got like 1 million people and then 25 likes on their stuff because nobody cares. They haven't built the ability, they might have built a following in the app or in the space, but they haven't built a tribe of people that actually care. That's what's hard.
Yeah, yeah. And when you look at the space, you know, over even the last 5 years, I mean, do you see it changing? Because you still love the audio format. And I know you've got stuff on video and you do the video interviews, you got your YouTube channel, but you know, it's weird that like an old technology is still such a presence. I know the US still probably consumes more podcasts than anybody, a driving culture, all that stuff, but you're still a big fan of betting on audio, right?
I bet on audio, and here, there's a couple reasons. One, yes, it's increasing. Podcasting is, I mean, all of us in that space have been waiting for the last 10, 12 years for it to pop off, right? But we saw with radio, it was supposed to get killed by TV, didn't happen. Radio was supposed to get killed by the internet and everything else, didn't happen. TV is getting killed. Radio's still holding strong. Audio in general still holding strong. I do like the video format, but as you and I were talking about earlier, getting people to get into this physical space is tough. Like you're in a way beholden to whoever shows up in the city and then trying to get them to do this, whereas I can show up and go to their house and do this, and it's harder for them to say no. So that's been a huge advantage. The other thing is, I would love to do more video, and I will be for sure, and cop a little bit of your style here with the excellent setup. And it's just a lot tougher to produce the amount of the quantity of high quality content. I know you guys can knock these things out like crazy, but I see the work that goes into it. I mean, somebody picked me up, there were people waiting outside, I get up here, there's 20 people in here taking B-roll photos, there's people on their machines editing in real time, there's a whole control booth of people out here doing this. If I had to, I could show up with my backpack full of stuff and do the show. Yeah, you don't get the video experience though. I like what you're doing here. I wish that this was all something I could fit into one backpack. It's not happening yet, but it will eventually happen where you'll be able to do this and you'll have one person with you or two. Yeah. And you'll be able to do the same thing.
It's interesting how you and I both went on this kind of journey of kind of exploration and knowledge, but we just came up with two completely different products, you know? And like from the very get-go, I was on video, probably because I was fascinated with video when I was a kid and I'd gone to like a part-time film school here, and then I was already on YouTube. It seemed like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I went on this one quest and you went on another one. You know, how did you change? Because again, Art of Charm started, you guys were providing value to this, you know, group of men out there that didn't know exactly what to do when it came to this certain area of their life, but you morphed it soon into a show that was talking to everybody and searching out knowledge. I mean, is that your adventure, your journey?
It was. I mean, look, part of it was I didn't have any way to produce video. Cameras and stuff were totally foreign to me. I had no help with Art of Charm, none. Yes, I was working with other people. They were not at all interested in the show. They were interested in picking up girls and making money. And for me, that started to get a little sad, a lot sad, pretty quick. It became a problem that I kind of solved, and I went, oh, okay, I don't have to lie to women to get them to like me. And then that was kind of the edge of my interest for this. And I wanted to help other guys make themselves better so that they actually deserved what they wanted. But that whole pickup scene just devolved into a bunch of lying scumbags who were kind of like angry at life and then in turn angry at women, and I didn't want any part of that.
Okay.
And it got really lucrative, which made it hard to leave even though we were teaching white hat stuff, which was like, look, you can be the good guy. You don't have to be this scumbaggy make-up stories about your imaginary Ferrari guy. But then after a while, you kind of became, I should say, we kind of became like the good drug dealer, where you tell people what you do and you're like, but it's not like that. And it just got tiring doing that. And so I decided that I was going to evolve the show. That worked up to a point until my former business partners were just like, look, we're making money doing it this way. We don't really care what you want. And that was only a matter of time until that string broke. So in a way, I really wish that I had been able to do something like what you're doing here with London Real earlier. I think with the Jordan Harbinger show where I am now, I'm able to do a wider variety of interviews with similarly interesting people and talk about subjects that are of interest to me and I'm not then trying to grasp at straws and be like, and this relates to your dating life in this totally tangential and awkward way because I have to sell this product.
Right. So product placement was tricky on The Art of Charm.
Yeah.
But the content was always kind of you talking to high performance people and
100%. Yeah.
So the content itself isn't necessarily changing, but now your product is congruent with who you are and everything.
And I strongly advise people to look at this, not just as this thing that this podcaster guy did. You and I have a similar story in that we were working on this financial corporate BS, and which was incongruent with what we wanted, and it killed us a little bit, right? Or a lot, or almost literally killed us in certain ways. You and I both have probably some similar close calls when it comes to this. And there are people right now that are going to be listening or watching this, and I strongly encourage you to look at what you're doing now and the rationalizations that you make in your head that say, well, I'm only going to do this for a few years. You know, when I was an attorney on Wall Street, I remember going, I'm going to do this for 2 to 4 years, and then I'm going to do what I really want to do, whatever that might be. I have no idea what that is. That is dangerous. That will kill you slowly, and you won't see it coming. Like if right now we picked up some kid who was in film school and said, look, that's not going to happen for you for a while. You need to work at Taco Bell. He'd punch us in the face, and rightfully so, right? Or, hey, look, I know you want to be an accountant. You should do this other horrible, horrible thing that you hate, but you're only going to have to do it for 4 years. He'd scream in your face. He would run away from you. But us, we slowly boil ourselves. These, you know, the boiling frog analogy.
Yeah.
I was more than willing to go, Wall Street is killing me, but 4 years, make some money, pay off my student loans, which, by the way, I got so I was qualified for that job that I hated, and then just do this slowly. That will kill you. It's not because you're not fulfilling your purpose. It's not because of your lack of meaning, or I should say, it's not just because of your lack of meaning. It's because when you're doing that, you think you're figuring out things that you want later, but it's getting further and further away from you. And then you start doing things like golden handcuffs, where you're buying things to make yourself happy. And then by the time you think you're ready to leave, or by the time you just can't take it anymore, you already bought a house, a car, a freaking boat or something, and you can't leave unless you make that similar standard of living. And my inbox, where I answer all these listener questions, is full of people going, well, I can't downgrade my lifestyle by leaving my corporate job and starting my shiny dog manufacturing business. I can't do that. That's a problem, because that debt, those golden handcuffs, that limits your freedom. And then suddenly you wake up and you're 35 and you've got a family, and you would be irresponsible to start doing something that you love doing without being able to support them. So right now is kind of the best time, whatever time in your life this is the best time to cut those ties and start to do what you need and want to do. Because it's not going to get easier as those tentacles grow around you. Yeah, as those vines grow around you.
It's almost like having like an addictive, substance in you.
Yes.
You can't walk away from it. And it's one thing about the Taco Bell job, the guy would punch you in the face if he was in film school, but if you say you're going to be a lawyer or a banker, you can say that to your mom and your friends, and they're that has cachet.
Yeah.
And that does play a part of how we interact with this culture and our own self-esteem, and that can be an even better lie. And once you're in the inside of a law firm, you realize that it's okay. There's some work there, and there's some interesting things there, but it's also, a boiler room.
Yeah.
And it's like a
sweatshop.
A sweatshop. Yeah. And again, people think this is crazy, but I know guys in banking that are like, Brian, I can't leave, and they're making millions of pounds a year, and they can't leave because they would go broke. They got the houses, the cars, 2 ex-wives, kids in private school, and they look at me and they're like, I could never do what you do. And this is good advice from you. Look at your life and don't do this short-term thing because it will kill you. And again, my latest movie, Iron Mind, I mean, 9 years in banking, I was slowly grinding myself into an alcoholic, depression, a life where I didn't really have any contact with anybody, and I was just not happy. But I told myself I was happy because look, I'm making the money, I'm going on the vacations, and I actually convinced myself I was happy.
Well, there's nothing really wrong with that on its face, right? Like, you didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, you rationalized this process, but you had a lot of help, right? There's no shortage of people that are going to look at a successful lawyer or investment banker and go, well, you're doing the right thing. You're not supposed to love what you do. And in many cases, that's fine. It's fine to not love every second of your job as long as you find purpose or meaning elsewhere. But it is bad news for you if you really hate it. You're looking forward to that first drink of the day every single day. And whether that comes at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. sort of depends on how many years you've been in the game, right? That's the problem. So there are plenty of people that are watching this that are like, I love being a banker. It's great. I love what I'm doing. I always, in fact, envied those people a little bit. You ever get that boss who's like, they're just geeking out on derivative finance and you're going, this guy loves this stuff and is printing money. I would love to be that guy. But for me, I'm just thinking, how much longer do I have to sit here and listen to this person talk before I can go do life? And I'm in that office for 7 days a week. So what it is it's not just quit your job or figure out what you're going to do, what you got to live your purpose. I don't believe in any of that. I really don't. I think you can find purpose and meaning, which are two different things, in pretty much anything that you're doing. What you should fight is the rationalization that says, well, you know, I'm just going to do this for a little while even though I don't like it. Or I don't hate everything about this, so let me focus on what I do love, and you know, maybe one day I'll find a way out of this. That hope is not a strategy at all.
Interesting. Okay, that's good advice. I want to talk at some point about how you stumbled on this concept of networking and how you hacked your way into this space, because you did it out of necessity, really, and I think you got the first insight into the law firm and how you survived in there, and that's great stuff. But before we jump in there, I was just wondering, what kind of knowledge can you drop on us after 12 years of talking long-form conversations with some of the, you know, most successful or most famous or infamous humans in the world? Like, it rubs off on me, I know, but like, what have you learned? Because we're both probably in the best seat in the house, right? We're getting our PhD in, I don't know what it is, the humanity, the world, life. What have you learned?
Well, it's great to have that front row seat, right? I mean, imagine being able to sit down with your favorite author and be like, so here's a question I had about this. Give me an hour of questions that you basically have to answer because you're streaming live to hundreds of thousands of people, and it's going to look terrible if you don't indulge me in this thread, right? I love that about the job. What I've found through interviews is that the clarity of thinking in people who really have created something special is really just next level. And what I mean by that is, you don't generally find even ultra creative artsy fartsy types. Like, I interviewed Nadia Tolokonnikova from Pussy Riot.
Okay, yeah.
And people think like, oh, okay, so she gets up somewhere and does some sort of dirty thing in a church in a face mask, whatever. The level of thinking that goes into this, the clarity of thinking, these are people that, whether they've written a book about astronomy or quantum physics or have been to a Russian prison for political speech, the amount of thought that goes into what they're doing and the amount of research that goes into changing their own or other people's behavior is so much more than what it looks like from the outside. Like, you and I have met plenty of our friends who are writing books or things like that, but you see these authors that are writing, let's say, a business book because they want to get speaking gigs and that's their career. The level of research is kind of like, let me read 20 business books, take some of the best stuff, write some of it in my own words, now I got a book. When you see truly original creators, when you see truly visionary game changers, when you see truly gifted educators or artists, they have done 100 times more work. And it's not just work ethic, it's the passion for what they do, and it's the amount that, it's almost like a compulsive level of creative thinking that never shuts off. And when I meet people like Nadia from Pussy Riot, I just think, you probably never sleep. For like every fiber of your being is being geared towards this type of creation or your next piece of work. And that to me is truly impressive. And being around that is energizing. And I think not only are we lucky to be in that space with those people, but we can create that space for other people as well. Like your team here, they're not here because, well, maybe they are, maybe you're just super generous with your paychecks. Something tells me that that's not the only reason those guys and gals are here. They're here because they're almost as obsessed with getting knowledge out of people's brains as you are. And that is something that can inspire your workforce. It's something that keeps you awake at night in a good way. And it's something that keeps you actually living for your life instead of just living for your paycheck or living for your next dose of substance that's keeping you numbed up enough to go back into the office.
Yeah.
And so that for me has been, inspiring is a trite word that I hate. Motivating is also a trite word that I hate, but maybe there's a word for those two things put together. There's something special about being around that kind of energy that gives you the ability to kind of pass that on to other people that are around you. And that I think makes for a good leader, but that I also think makes for, that's why your show is good, man. You know, that's why people come back to London Real for, what's it been, 8 years or 7 years y'all have been around, something like that? I've been around for 12 years. That's why people keep listening. It's not just because we get more famous celebrities. Like that shit has become commoditized. You just, if it's about the connections, if it's about who you rope in, there are plenty of podcasts, there are plenty of YouTube channels that just get some other reality TV star and say, whoa, that's really inspiring, bro. That shit is a commodity. I don't know if I'm allowed to say stuff like that on your program.
You can.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So that's a commodity, just having them on, but you're saying really getting into and finding out what their obsession is and what they're all about and tapping into that energy.
And you can't fake that. You can't fake that. You see guys trying to fake that in their shows on YouTube or on a podcast, and it's really obvious because their reply to everything is, wow, inspiring or amazing, because they don't have anything to contribute. They're just sitting there. They're just sitting there and they're just on the camera. They don't actually need to be there. The other person's doing all the work. You know, this is a real conversation. And you can't have this kind of conversation if you're just experienced at faking it. If you want to see somebody who's really good at faking it, watch a journalism, TV show where they go, so, why did you start your program? Oh, wow, that must be so interesting. How inspiring. Up next, this guy has 3 dogs and they all have weird haircuts. Thanks for coming in. Right. That's why you can tell what's different. And that's why journalism, or one reason why journalism itself tends to die, because you have half of them looking for clickbait and the other half just wants to get through the day. Guys like you and I, we have the luxury, having created that around ourselves, I'd like to think, with our teams, of being able to do something real. No pun intended with the name of the show, but now it seems to fit together pretty nicely.
Yeah, and when you have someone like I have in the studio and it's like 6 cameras and it's uncut, I think you really can capture the essence of that person.
Yeah.
And like I've had 1 or 2 guests that have like honestly died before they were able to come on the show. We had like Kimbo Slice booked and he died.
Literally died before.
2 days before.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
And I always felt like I missed a chance to encapsulate his personality over 90 minutes in like high definition, multi-camera, to where I believe his grandchildren would be like, that's what Grandpa was like. Mm-hmm. You could see his passion, you could see his energy, and I totally agree. When you get people at that top level, they exude it. And then they probably mention 10% of what they really know, and they're just next level. And I've found that even when I'm on my own media bias, like, oh, look at that person, they got 1 million Twitter followers, they're just an idiot, they're a pop singer. But, let me take a chance and have them on. When they sit in the chair, I'm usually like, wow, they're a lot more. Just like that pussy riot analogy. You might think, oh, they just got up into church and said some foul things, anyone can do that. It's like, well, actually, let's look behind it a bit more. There was a lot that went into that, a lot of thought, pushing through difficulty, perseverance, negativity. Everyone's got a crazy story.
It's funny because I asked my friend Jason Flom, who's a record executive, I said, what's some music that you just hate that has been popular, or something that you missed that you just don't like and you don't understand? And I hope I'm allowed to repeat this, but here goes. He said Collective Soul, I hate it. And I was like, me too, I can't stand them. They were overplayed. They just ruined my childhood, right? But if you think about what those guys did, they hit this chord that resonated with so many people that it became a cliche that became annoying as hell to hear every single time it came on the radio. There is an immense amount of talent and hard work that goes into finding that little crack that gets into my brain and makes me want to run myself through that wall, but resonates so well with so many people. That takes kind of once in a decade levels of talent, hard work, perseverance, practice, rehearsal, and all of that coming together. So whenever I hear something or see something that I just can't stand, I always have to sort of pause and ask myself, is it because I feel like they're getting credit that they don't deserve, or is it just because they've nailed something and it doesn't resonate with me, but it drives me crazy that everyone else loves it? Because if it's the latter, there's something to be learned from that type of artist or that type of creator, even if I just can't stand what they stand for. And I always recommend, like, if you think of somebody who triggers you politically, if that's something that you have, always look at why you are having an emotional reaction. And that goes, whether it's a creator or whether it's just some feeling you're having. This is maybe more self-helpy than I'd like to get on any show, but anything that gets you a strong emotional reaction, especially if it's negative, really spend a lot of time thinking about why. Because there tends to be some gold there for your own growth.
Reflecting back to you, what a part of you that sees that and doesn't like that part of yourself?
Yeah.
Is it always that?
Yeah, it's not always that. Look, I know somebody like Tony Robbins would be like, oh, there's something in you. Maybe that's true. I don't know. I don't put a lot of stock or credence in a lot of self-help stuff. But I think anytime you have a super strong emotional reaction, it tends to either reflect something in you that you don't like, or it reflects something on you that you believe strongly for some reason. Maybe you don't even know the reason. But I bet if you find something that you think is unfair, you find that you have a strong sense of justice, figuring out why can lead you to deeper meaning in any work that you're doing. And that, I think, for me, was one of the reasons why I left law and Wall Street so early, was because I started my original podcast, which now became the Jordan Harbinger Show, in my friend's basement during law school. So I wasn't ever really lost. Maybe I was when I applied to law school in the first place, but I wasn't lost. I had found something while there that I was really passionate about. It just never occurred to me that you could actually do something you loved for your career, because I didn't grow up with that. I don't think anybody in our generation grew up with that. My dad was an auto worker, my mom was a school teacher in a public school. They weren't like, follow your dreams, which is, by the way, terrible advice, but they weren't even thinking you should love what you do. That's a foreign language to people that grew up in Detroit, Michigan in the 80s.
Why is follow your dreams terrible advice?
It's terrible advice because here's the thing. If you're hearing that advice from, let's say, I don't think Mark Cuban said this, but let's attribute this to him for pretend right now. Let's say you hear it from him. How many people have a microphone, have 300,000 people listening or watching what we're doing right now, and are saying this? Okay, great. Is that why they are in the place where they are? Probably not, but it sounds really good during their commencement speech or whatever they got hired to do, right? But what's not going to sound good is, well, what you need to do is have a really great product idea, really lean into it. You know, you're gonna have to finagle some relationships to get funding for this. You're gonna have to sleep on the floor of your clothing shop and da-da-da. That's a really long, kind of boring thing that none of these kids who are waiting to throw their hat up in the air want to hear. The problem is it's selection bias in a lot, or survivor bias, actually, even better. The people that follow their dreams straight into their mom's basement, they don't have a microphone, a YouTube channel, any kind of Twitter following, Instagram following that they can point to that says, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this, right? They failed at that. They are struggling through that, and then they're blaming themselves. Why didn't this work for me? I followed my passion. I don't understand what's going on. Oh, never give up. No, you should give up at a certain point. If you are not doing well and it is failing, maybe your idea sucks. Maybe your execution stinks. Maybe you don't have either the work ethic, the talent, the team around you to execute on this. Maybe you should give up and pivot or do something else. Maybe you shouldn't follow your dreams. Maybe your dream is a better hobby than a career. That advice is not PC, so it doesn't sound great. If you post that in a meme on Instagram, it's not going to get a lot of love. Give up. It's probably a shitty idea. That's not going to get you a ton of likes. Not many people are going to retweet that, right? It's not going to get you a great following. It's going to be more like a curmudgeonly thing that one of the meme accounts is going to post. But in the end of the day, sometimes you have people that say, hey, should I pursue this idea? I have no education, no experience, I don't have the team around me to do it, but it's my dream. My answer often is, no, you shouldn't do that. Maybe you should be someone's assistant for 5 years so that you can find out how high performers actually live, work, and play. Maybe you should go get coffee for somebody and sit in on meetings and take notes for 3 years. Maybe that's a better play than trying to launch your own clothing line because it's your dream, right? But that's not sexy. And what sells right now on the internet is crap that makes people feel good short term, because that's what people want short term. They want that dopamine hit. If you tell people that you were a heroin addict and that you hated your career, they're like, oh man, that sucks. That would never happen to me. And then they go on Instagram and they go, oh, I love this meme. I'm gonna heart that, I'm gonna bookmark it. And then when I feel down, I'm gonna scroll through my bookmarks of memes that I like. It's the same thing. Their habit is cheaper. It may not kill them, but it will kill the chances of them being successful in the long run, because they're just looking at short-term crap that makes them feel good. Oh man, I'm not making any money. But look, this person, they're making millions of dollars selling this stuff online and everyone likes their crap on Instagram. I want to be them. That aspirational stuff is garbage. It is a trap. So if you are listening to this, watching this right now, and you're following somebody online that makes you feel good short term, and then you start to think about why you can't do what they're doing, start to examine whether or not you've just fallen into a trap. Because I think a lot of us, and this happens to the best of us, I still have days where I go, man, this person is effortlessly succeeding. Wait a minute, I gotta stop myself and call a friend and say, do you know this person? And there's no better antidote to that than a show like London Real or shows that we create to find out what really goes on in that person's life. And you'll find the person who's sitting on a beach enjoying their life and has made $1 million selling hair extensions has had some shit happen that has been terrible, and that they have a 10-year path to where they got now that isn't sexy enough to talk about. But follow your dreams sounds really good in the moment. You can't focus on that tip of the spear, that sort of bit that they're showcasing on social media. You have to get the whole story or you're just gonna hate yourself. You're gonna think you're doing things wrong when really maybe you're doing everything right. But that's the long answer to why follow your dreams is bad advice, because it's not advice. It's actually not actionable at all. Follow it how, right? Maybe you need to back up and get the skills first. Don't just go for it. Go for it is a bad strategy. What if that was a battle plan? Just go for it, man. You'll be fine. I don't think so.
How come no one's talking about this dangerous addiction that is not only Instagram, okay, but following these influencers that sell you the dream and then the hustle? You know, you've been in this game long enough to see this coming up the last 3 or 4 years to where everyone's doing it, and some are more obvious than others, but I mean, you're calling it out for what it is. Right there is your own little mini addiction, and even though it won't kill you, it can be more damaging than the heroin and the drugs and the alcohol. No one's talking about that.
The reason no one's talking about it is because right now there's a certain percentage of people that are going, this guy's just a negative a-hole. Like, I don't like this guy. I'm not gonna follow the Jordan Harbinger show. Look at this curmudgeon. He's basically an old cranky guy in a young-ish man's body, right? Like, I don't care for this wisdom. I don't feel good about this person's advice. And I don't, by the way, I'm not always such a naysayer. I'm, in fact, one of the more positive people I think that you can find. I'm just very realistic in that I won't lie to someone to make them feel good, because I want to give people things that they can use. The reason other people aren't talking about this is imagine somebody posts a meme and says, you can do it, your success is right around the corner. People who are in need of that dopamine hit because their life isn't going as well as they want, or they're not making a living and their parents just said, get a damn job, you can't sit in my basement for another year, it's 2019, get off social media, it's never gonna happen for you. They need someone who's gonna tell them that, screw the haters, the naysayers, they don't get you. They get you. They see you more clearly than you see yourself. Not the guy on the internet who's being a dick. Those people around you that are telling you you need to back up and be more realistic, they get you. They're trying to protect you. People who are telling you things like that often are doing it because they see that as in your best interest. It doesn't mean that you should quit what you're doing. It means that maybe you need to slow down and back up and get some skills or get something else in place. the reason it's not popular to talk about is it doesn't make people feel good in the moment, which doesn't generate likes, which doesn't generate retweets. And often it's harder to explain than putting it in one sentence or 140 characters. So it's less popular to talk about this. You and I are in a position of luxury in many ways where I've got 90 minutes to explain this on an episode of the Jordan Harbinger Show. You've got an hour, hour and a half to sit here. We can flesh this out. And people who are watching this and consuming this will respect your wisdom. Your reputation is good enough that they'll sit through this, right? But I guarantee you there's people that already turned this off and they were like, I don't feel good when this person talks, so I'm out. They would rather hear someone else say the buzzwords, right? Hustle, you gotta scale, you gotta grow, you gotta da-da-da, you gotta make sure that they'd rather hear that and go, yeah, that jibes with all this other stuff I've been seeing online. They'd rather nod their heads, and those are the same people that get sort of fractionalized, and they'll look at their left wing or their right wing stuff, and they don't consume anything. They don't read the book. They read the back of the book and they go, yeah, I already know this. Or they watch one interviewer that only has other people complaining about kids these days. They'll watch that. Or they'll watch the one viewer that says, well, the president is this way, and everybody who believes this other stuff is dumb, but you're smart because you watch this show, right? That stuff feels good, and it generates a tribe. The problem is you don't need to generate a tribe. You need to build something. That's so much harder. So it's easier just to say, come join my tribe. I'll do all the hard work for you. I'll tell you how right you are about everything. That's easier. But the problem is that's the trap. You spend a decade being right about everything, and you wake up one day and you have done nothing for yourself. You've created nothing of value for anyone, including yourself, especially yourself.
And so then what do you say to that 25-year-old kid that emails you, I'm sure you get them all the time, and says, what do I do, Jordan? What do I do? How do I become like Charlemagne the God?
Yeah.
How do I become like Neil deGrasse Tyson? How do I become like you?
Yeah.
What do you tell them?
If I had to go
dreams.
back, follow your passion. If I had to go back, and I wish I could, if I had to go back and start all over again, what I would do instead of going to graduate school right away, not that I had no value in it, I just didn't know what I was going to be able to do with it. I would go to a local CEO, or one of my friends had the best job when I was an undergrad. She was the personal assistant to the CEO of the power company in Detroit, Michigan. And I said, oh, that must be so boring. She always had to fly. She always had to work 6-7 days a week. And I thought, that sucks. That job sucks. Wow, you're working so hard. You're not getting paid that much because you work for this public utility. What are you doing? And she's like, well, my uncle got me this job and it's actually okay. I'm so dense. That was the best job you could possibly have at age 23, 24. You're in the room with a high performer. You're in the car. You're flying in business class, which is great. But really, you're sitting next to this person. They're telling you what's on their mind. You're drafting the email. You're getting all their communication. You're formulating all of their communication, their responses. You're sitting in all these meetings where there's negotiations happening and you're taking notes. You're absorbing all of this. You can work your way up the corporate food chain and you can get in that room 10, 15, 20 years later as that person's underling, or you can, this is the hack. Now you're their lackey, great, you gotta go get coffee, too bad. You're in the room with all of those people with, 8 months of experience, 6 months, 0 months of experience because he's your uncle's friend. That is the ultimate hack. If you can get in front of high performers, if you can become an intern at a place that has a bunch of badass people working, even if you have to pay your own way to get there, that is the best thing you can get. When you're in your 20s, experience is priceless. Yeah, maybe you need a paycheck. Get another job. And if they say, why can't you come in 7 days a week? You say, because I bag groceries at a grocery store, because that's how I pay my rent. If you guys can give me $1,000 a month, I can do this, nothing but this. A high performer who gets an intern that's an all-star would gladly pay you that. If you're 25 and you're wondering how to get experience right now, 25, 20, 35, I don't care. If you can get in the room with the type of people that you want to be like, that is worth more than the opportunity cost of the job you're doing now. The only time you can't do it is if you screwed up and you bought a car, a house, a boat, that you now have those golden handcuffs and you can't afford to do it. That's why all of that stuff should wait.